Kiwi to everyone. This is a time in Australia where we acknowledge and thank these thousands of volunteers that help keep our society and our communities all together. It's a fabulous job that our volunteers do, and we love everything that you do in the AMEP Volunteer Tutor Program. There are so many benefits and so much support that you're able to provide our students. It is gratefully received by us and certainly the students that you are supporting. So thank you so much for being a part of the team. We really do appreciate it. I'm here this evening, as I said, with Arena, who is here with me to look after the chat pod. If you have any questions, type them in the chat pod. You'll see along the top of your screen a chat bubble. If you click on that, it should open a chat pod down the right-hand side of the screen for you, and you can type anything you would like into that chat pod if you have a question, and we will be able to assist you. I'm going to hand you now over to Georgie, who is going to deliver tonight's workshop. Georgie works with me in the AMEP, and she has a fabulous workshop tonight on linguistic awareness in reading and spelling. So over to you, Georgie. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to turn my camera off, but I'm here if you need me. Thanks, Georgie.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa and Irina, and thank you everyone for attending tonight. Just let me know, please, if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Oh, good. That's good. Thank you. Before I start talking about this topic that I'm quite passionate about, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that we're gathering from and meeting from today. TAFE New South Wales and myself would like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of the lands, rivers and seas. We acknowledge and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging of all nations. And today I'm joining this meeting from the land of the Darug people from Parramatta. Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for your time. Before I go ahead and start talking about linguistic awareness and reading and all of these matters, which many of you probably have a lot more experience with, because I understand that a lot of our volunteers are experienced teachers as well as experienced professionals and, migrants and so on and so forth. I'd like to start with a personal story. So my background is I was, an 18-year-old person that just graduated from high school, and the only local university that was around the corner was, in our local town in Lebanon, was the English faculty. And that's where I studied linguistics and English literature. To be honest, I didn't think that it would be such an interesting and important program, considering that I didn't have many choices. But it's just, it's eye-opening. Linguistics is eye-opening. It makes one understand not just, languages and how, humans communicated, but also understanding people and cultures and so on and so forth. Another personal story that I would like to share is I came here as an international student, and I studied again linguistics in New South Wales University, and that was great. My only regret is that I studied a master's degree when I was a bit too young and didn't have much experience in life. Years later, I have 3 children, and one of them struggled a fair bit with reading and with spelling, still does. And having that background just helps a lot. I have worked in teaching English as a second language, and I've worked as a CE teacher, which is the program that teaches adult Australians who struggle with literacy and numeracy, how to read and write and literacy and numeracy and all of that. This is the personal story. In 2011, my parents came from Lebanon, and my dad is a retired farmer, and he basically drove us nuts, being bored and feeling a bit depressed. And while he didn't have the opportunity to have a home tutor at the time, you were called, he had a next door neighbor, Alvin, who had an amazing talent in understanding and manipulating language. Alvin would go to all sorts of shops and places with my dad. My dad had some background in speaking French because he lived in Canada for a while, but Alvin was his interpreter, and people would usually just look at them and smile because none of them could speak a common language. Like my dad spoke Arabic and some English, and Alvin only spoke English, but he had an amazing talent with language, understanding language, being able to simplify words and, communicate ideas and so on and so forth. The only thing that he couldn't understand about my dad, who is a farmer and Alvin was a great gardener, is why on earth did he pull out half of his buffalo grass at the time to plant instead parsley and mint. But anyway, that's our story. And Alvin at the time played a very important part in my dad's life, and we've always been thankful for him welcoming him to this country and also being that support. So that's my personal story. And now, speaking of linguistics, I'm going to go into, the topic of literacy. As you know, learning to read transforms lives. Learning to read and literacy in particular is an issue to many people in many English-speaking countries. So while this is not a forum for, literacy and numeracy, but it's important to sort of recognize its cost where people don't have the opportunity to learn to read and write, whether it's in the first language or as an additional language. Success in education as well as the workplace is largely dependent on being literate, being able to read and write and having that confidence. Another personal story. I have a great friend from previous school where she's got 3 lovely boys. One of the boys cannot look at you in the eye, and after years and years of struggling, it was recognized that actually he's just struggling with literacy, and that has affected mental health as well as self-confidence and so on and so forth. So this is quite a common, unfortunate thing that happens when it comes to literacy and where people, especially young people, struggle with reading and writing. Reading is the basis of acquisition of knowledge, regardless of whether we're auditory people or visual or so on and so forth. We still need to be able to read and write. To gain access, equitable access to knowledge, as well as cultural engagement and for democracy. Illiteracy is quite expensive. It costs the global economy. The figure from 2015 was $1 trillion. Where does this sit in terms of adult migrants? The principles are the same. When my child, who was a brilliant boy with a brilliant brain for maths and science, was struggling with reading back when he was in kindy, what I could resort to was, this is not how we teach adult migrants. The way we teach adult migrants is from the basics. We look at the sounds, we look at words, we segment words into syllables, and so on and so forth. So whatever was the school at the time was teaching wasn't simply working for him. But what I'm trying to say here, the message that I'm trying to say is any information that you can come across when it comes to teaching, whether it's for primary kids or high school or teaching English in particular, and reading and spelling, it applies to an adult migrant. A lot of the resources that I've collated in this presentation is from the internet, just simply from Google, but there's also a lot of free resources that are available all around the internet. Particularly I like academia, which has you have access to journals and journals, academia.com. As well as BBC, ABC, The Conversation, so on and so forth. I'll share some resources at the end, and Lisa has some PDF files to share. Speaking of reading and writing, it's important for us to remember that we were not born as humans to read and write. So if you look at linguistics, we learn especially in first language acquisition, that we are born with an innate ability to learn languages, especially when a child is, quite young, until the age of 4 or so. This ability one loses with time. So when it comes to spoken language, we do have that ability. We don't have an innate ability to read and write, because the writing system itself is a recent, invention by humans. So the writing system evolved over time, as you know, started with representations of the natural world through cave and rock paintings. This image on the right is an Aboriginal rock painting from, I believe, 15,000 years ago or something like that. And this is a famous, the one on the left, of a bull, I believe, from Libya. The writing system evolved with time with the hunter and gatherer societies, and it became a bit more symbolic. This is what we refer to as semanto-phonetic writing systems, where a symbol represented a meaning and sounds. And you'd be familiar with, the Mesopotamian culture, and one of the first known languages, written languages or scripts in human history, around 3,500 BCE, followed by the ancient Egyptian, which is, there's a lot of influences between these scripts. It's amazing, actually, to be able to trace the influences. There's also a very important script that is still very relevant to us today, which is the Chinese script. If you're looking from a perspective of a Chinese script, for example, and you compare your Chinese students, and I had to fact check my information with my colleagues who could read and write Chinese. The Chinese script till today is still a semanto-phonetic writing system. It's still based on pictograms. It has evolved a lot over the thousands of years that it's existed, but it's still like pictograms or ideograms, which is images of ideas. These could be physical objects, these could be abstract notions, as well as sounds and, so on and so forth. We've got a lot of people in this forum that might be able to add to this conversation, and please feel free to do so. So if you're dealing with a person from who is literate in Chinese, one of Chinese script or Chinese language, and hasn't had exposure to the Latin alphabet or, the English alphabet, it's a completely different concept to them. Later on, we have the semanto-phonetic scripts. These are images of the well-known semanto-phonetic scripts. The last one on right in the middle, second row, is actually from the Mayan culture of American continent. Then the written system evolved into what is called alphabets now. The Phoenicians of the Middle East, Mediterranean, what is known today as Lebanon, Syria, South Syria, or parts of Syria, and Palestine and Israel, developed the very first phonetic alphabet. It is the word that you see over here in apologies. In Arabic script is Abjadiyya. The word Abjadiyya is a summary of the first 3 letters, similar to alphabet. So that was around 15th century BC. It's a very efficient alphabet. It only has 22 consonants, no vowels. Vowels were added similar to the French and Spanish. What I remember of them as accents. So these are added, but you can easily understand written written Arabic or Phoenician at the time without the vowels. It is right to left. It looks a bit odd, and it has been a very important part of human history in terms of written language because apart from being very efficient, it also impacted on the Greek and the Latin alphabets that became major, part of human history when it comes to written languages. If we fast forward, apologies, this is a snapshot of the Phoenician alphabet. The sounds are still very similar to Arabic and the order, but also to the Greek. And this is on the right-hand side, you can see the Greek alphabet, as well as the Arabic at the bottom. The Arabic script is significantly different from the Phoenician script, but the sounds are still similar. Alif, Beth, Gimel, Daleth, He, Waw, etc. One interesting thing I learned while working on this presentation is that pair, which is here, pair was always one of these things that I had to sit down with my illiterate farmer grandmother when I was young and say, teach her that it's not Pauline, the name of my auntie, it's actually Pauline. She just couldn't say pair. For some reason, pair is no longer became part of the Arabic alphabet. It stayed in Persian, which is also based on the Arabic script. It was in Phoenician, it is in Greek, but not in Arabic. So interesting, something for one to look into and read about. Moving forward, fast forwarding 1,000 years, we've got in the 7th century CE, we've got the Roman Empire reached Britain, British Isles, and brought with them the Latin script, which actually did develop from Greek as well as previously Phoenician. The Anglo-Saxons, Germanic tribes were in the British Isles and were using Old English as their language. The reason why we have this very complex and beautiful language is English has been an international language from day one. English started as a Germanic, spoken Germanic language or variant of Germanic language at the time. The Germanic runes, which were pagan Germanic runes, or a script at the time, was used to convey Old English, and this, and then Latin alphabet was adopted, with the Christian missionaries and so on and so forth. This is a copy, like an image of the Futhorc, which is the Germanic runes, and this is just a photo from Google on of the old English alphabet using the Latin script. What happened at the time, and this explains a lot. The English that we use today is English didn't start as one pure language, say like German did, or Latin or Arabic. It was from day one, and combination of languages. It is known today, while it's known today as the lingua franca of the world, it is the language that we use to communicate with almost anyone around the world. Every language, every country, on this planet speaks English somehow. And especially with the use of the internet, English is only becoming more and more powerful as a language. It is a morphophonemic language. It's what we mean by that is English is made of units of meaning, which are the morphemes as well as sounds. It has 5 vowels only and 19 consonants, but 44 sounds. So as you just look at these numbers, you can see where the complexity of English starts. It starts by we don't have enough letters in the alphabet to convey the sounds that we produce. Not only that, it's got letters that can work as consonants and vowels, and it also has hundreds and hundreds of variations to convey simple common sounds. Speaking of this, I would like you to before I jump to these slides that I just passed through, can you think of, I just have these words, 6 words, just very briefly, how many sounds are there in each one of these words? Feel free to type in your answers, or just share them. Do I have any volunteers? 3. Yep.
Some have said 3, some have said 1,
Yeah.
3. There's a few there,
Yeah.
Georgie.
Yeah, most of them are 3. You're right. An, ran, ain, rain, ain. As again, 3. The 8 too. The sound A and T, and 8. This one is one that I've been working on for the past 4 years with my kids, but we're getting there. And straight, which has, I believe, 5 str. There's 3, and A is AIGH, and then the T. So there's 5. Yeah, and what this just shows us, this is just a very simple example. The sound A can be conveyed, in numerous ways. Also, we have to do a bit of thinking before we, in order to read, to spell, especially if you're thinking of somebody from a non-English speaking background. English is not straightforward, That's why we don't refer to it as a phonetic language. It is a morphophonemic language. Also, it's not phonetic because there's no way for us to accurately predict how to spell the word just by hearing the sounds, like the word, 8. There's 2 sounds, but it's got 3 letters. Or the word straight, it should have, str, that's 3. A and T should have 4, but it's got a lot more letters than that. It is known to be the most irregular of the alphabetic languages because while it's got an alphabet, it has a lot, as I said before, more sounds than the alphabet has. It also never, I like this quote, English was very generous in adopting the language and structure of words and spelling conventions of the languages of the countries the British kingdom at the time sort of conquered, as well as being conquered by these languages. So English has sort of been quite welcoming in terms of not just words, loan words, but also spelling conventions, so on and so forth. It's a very you can understand why, just by thinking about it as a language, why it can be challenging, whether it's for native English speakers trying to read and write and spell, or to people from non-English speaking background trying to read, and particularly people from non-English speaking background that don't have their background, like their language doesn't use the Latin script, and not sharing, like, spelling conventions such as, Italian and Spanish and French. Now, how does one teach English? Phonology, the sounds, understanding of sounds of the sounds in the word, recognizing how many sounds. This is especially important for people from non-English speaking background because it helps with pronunciation. It helps with understanding, meaning differences. Orthography, which is the spelling conventions, and this is where it gets quite complex. Etymology, the background and the history of the language. If you type in anything to do with etymology of or the history of the letters in the English alphabet, actually that's a very interesting history lesson. Every single letter has come from, a particular language, or, there's a lot of Greek and Latin and even Phoenician and Hebrew in the actual English alphabet. Morphology, as I said before, it's the smallest unit of meaning. So the word the S that we add to words at the end to make them plural, like, computer, computers, that is a morpheme. It's the smallest unit of sound, which means plural. prefixes and suffixes. You're familiar with them. They're very powerful tools to teach spelling, not just spelling, but also semantics, which is meaning, understanding that, say, the word bicycle, bi means two and comes from Greek, and or the other way around, comes from Latin, and sickle is cycle, came from Greek through Latin. Hello. All of this, we call it as linguistic awareness. When we're working with any student at the end of at the end of a lesson, just focusing on a few words, trying to read, stopping at sounds. This is a very important skill that we convey to readers, whether they young people or old migrants, trying to think of where the sounds, what sounds can you hear in the word. This brings us, enables us to understand, say, I don't know, cliff. You hear two sounds, the C and the L. These can be, blends are quite challenging, especially to people from non-English speaking background, because blends, especially like the way two sounds come together, they can be quite different between languages. All you have to think of is like common words such as za, T and Z. In za, it's not a letter combination or a sound combination that we have in English. So focusing on simple words, just trying to, break them down into what sounds are they made of, rhyming, blending sounds together. If a person is struggling to read a word, just try them to dissect the word into the sounds that it's made of, and then putting the word together. Dividing words into syllables, as I said before, it's a very powerful reading tool, especially for beginners. There's, if you've ever been involved in literacy and teaching English for primary school children, there's the ongoing war between different schools of thought, whether to teach reading and writing phonetically, or whether it's to teach it through, I don't know what, there's all sorts of theories. And the bottom line is nobody can learn a language without understanding everything about it, the sounds. You cannot learn a foreign language without understanding, what sounds are in the word, how these words are put together, which is the orthography, what, spelling conventions we have. The background really helps a lot because it makes information simple, and two, it helps us understand meanings of words, morphology, as I said before, the prefixes and suffixes, as well as, of course, something that people living in this country have as an advantage over people coming from overseas is the semantics. Students will need more help with understanding vocab, the meaning of words, etc. Moving forward, we've done the sounds, this quick task, but if any idea how many ways we convey the sound A in English? Can you think of a number? Diana, do you have your hand up? You're on mute. So can you, from top of your head, can you think of Bill?
Sounds of 8.
A.
A.
Like how many ways? 3. There's A, which is like baby.
Do you mean a?
No, A. The sound A.
Oh, well, yes, that's one. Yeah, the sound A. What would you say? How many ways can we pronounce it?
Do we write it?
Oh, okay.
So now we're thinking of orthography, the writing conventions.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought you had your hand up.
No.
For example, the word Abraham, it's got 3 different ways of saying A.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah,
and there are some words. I think I put 3, but I think it could be up to 5.
Yep. So we've got rain, AI, rain, EIG, 8, which is A, split digraph, it's called, where it's been split with the letter T, A-E again, but it's split. E-I-G-H, which is different from, in 8, which is different from E-I-G in rain. A-I-G-H, that's another way to write straight. I can think of reindeer, which is E-I-N, reindeer. So all of these are different ways to write or to represent the sound A, not A. And this is how complex English could get. How many did we do? All of them? Oh, yes, of course. There's also A as in clay or grey, EA as in steak, EY as in they, and I believe we've done AIGH. I tried to put them in alphabetical order. I don't know if I've done that well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 ways to represent in writing the sound A. So if you're dealing, whether you're dealing with, yes, it's double that, Mimi and Fiona. Maybe the way I worded my question wasn't really good. I'll have to think of a way to put it in, different way to put it in tomorrow. So in English, there's 10 different ways to write, to represent the sound A. This is very confusing for young people trying to learn to spell and write independently, as well as can be quite confusing, especially for people who come from languages or who speak languages or their first language is what is called shallow orthography language, which is a language that gets spelled the way it is pronounced. Roya, I could see you talking about we can't hear you. 30 minutes?
Sorry, I'm speaking out loudly. Yes, there are languages that are just phonetic.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, like Farsi, yeah.
Yeah.
And Arabic.
Arabic. Complex languages, but fairly phonetic. The common examples, I believe, are German is, I believe, is relatively phonetic. The example that I always have in mind is Finnish. And I believe Dutch is just as, I could be wrong, I'm confused now, but I believe Dutch is just as complex as English. What we've just done was looking at orthography, which is different ways of a sound can be spelled. So take, for example, the phoneme, which is the sound F. We've got, this is a straightforward one. We've got 4 different ways to write it. F at the beginning of the word, as in fun, double F at the end of the word. I learned this recently, this year from the kids. Just, you know, we've automatically learned to spell through years and years of practice, or maybe we've learned at a young age and have forgotten, but words such as F, they're called floss. So any word that finishes with, not any word, this doesn't apply in English. Most words is the key. Most words that finish with the sounds F or L or S or Z, that's why they're called floss, tend to have double of that consonant at the end, like puff, like cliff. So double L like fill, full, double S like glass, and double Z like buzz. We also have PH as in photo. This is a Greek word. So if you look at the etymology of the word, it's actually Greek. Laugh, I believe it's German, and tough, also German. So the GH are actually German words from Germanic background. The spelling is considerably different in German now than, you know, the English version, but of course, each word has evolved, you know, as part of the English language. The phoneme K, we've got a C like coat, elect, music. K as is skim, it usually comes in the middle of the word. There's all sorts of rules for each one. It's a never-ending lesson. One starts delving into this. It's brilliant. It's engaging and it's also interesting. Mechanic. My son struggles with the word school. I recently came across this. The fact, I can't remember if I put it here, but the fact that school is a Greek word, and all Greek words, or most English words with a CH, if not all, representing the k sound, are actually Greek origin. So far we've managed to get him to learn chemist, school, echo, he's interested in echoes, and Christmas, because he always gets Christmas wrong. So it's Christ Mass from Christos, and it's a CH. Words such as QUE, finishing with QUE, they're sort of a bit more easy to guess. Technique, plaque, they're French words. This is what we're talking about here is we've merged from orthography, which is the conventions of writing, to etymology, which is the origin of words. For etymology, Google is brilliant. I've used, so this image here on TAF is just a Google search. So if you're sitting with your grandchild who's struggling to spell, or your tutor or your learner that you're tutoring, or any person that needs help in this area, or just out of interest, just if you type in Google origin and then the word, you get something similar to this. So origin of TAF is Germanic, and we've got it through Old English. It's also similar to Dutch and German. If you use etymology.com, these mechanic here is, I believe mechanic and laugh are from etymology.com, where they explain meaning of the word, and then all the variations through all languages, and eventually the background. So mechanic comes from the Greek word mechanikos, and it's having to do with tools. YouTube is brilliant. This is YouTube. A lot of people have a lot of time up their sleeves to put YouTube videos. It's brilliant. They earn money doing this, and also they put a lot of information. You can't always guarantee that everything that you're coming across is actually 100% correct, because you do come across information that is conflicting. But in order to help a person learn how to spell or understand the meaning, it does the job. We don't have to necessarily always check dictionary, or or do thorough investigation. The next word is something for you to do. Can you guess? So speaking of etymology and the background of words, can you guess the background or the origin of these words? Avatar. Feel free to say them out loud or type in. Arabic. Actually, avatar was very interesting. It's Sanskrit. Yeah, bazaar. I thought it was Arabic. I thought it was Turkish. I'm giving you a hint here. It's not Turkish. Any volunteers?
Greek?
Persian, I believe. Bazaar. Cliché genre, French, and
Yeah.
there's, I believe, one more French in there.
Gourmet.
Gourmet. Espresso is Italian, and so is the coffee, which is great. Karma.
Indian?
Yeah, Sanskrit. Pajama.
Indian.
That's right, yes. And it means loose clothes. Yeah, loose clothes. Tornado.
Italian?
Spanish.
Okay.
I thought it was American because of all these tornadoes, but no, it's actually Spanish. Utopia.
Greek.
Greek. Jumbo.
Italian?
No, actually, jumbo is Swahili, African. And one of my colleagues guessed it because she put together the jumbo and the elephant. I was like, oh, I wonder if it's either African or Indian, and she was right.
yes.
Ombudsman.
German?
It's either German. I'll have to look at the ombudsman is Swedish. And we work a lot with ombudsman, or the term ombudsman, because we have it in the complaints. I was like, now I know the background of this word. Whimsical is German, but I have to say that when I tried to find its etymology, I couldn't. All I could find is wimwam. So from this source that I got these lists from, it says German, but I couldn't fully find out exactly where it's from. Yoga, of course, is Indian word, and it's Sanskrit. So this is just a simple exercise, how to get a person interested, not just interested, understand the meaning of the word, and also recognize the spelling conventions just by recognizing the background of the word. The very last point that we're going to talk about is morphology, which I've discussed earlier, the smallest unit of meaning. So the smallest unit of sound in a language is a phoneme. The smallest unit of meaning is a morpheme. Morphemes can be root words, just like a base of the word, can be prefixes, and can be suffixes. So if you're looking at the word prefix and suffix, the fix is the root word, and pre, which means something that comes before, and suffix, which I'm assuming something that comes after or at the end. If you look at the word morphology, why is morphology very important? Because by dividing the word into recognizable, recognizable units of meaning, it helps us understand the meaning of the word, and it also helps us recognize its spelling. So if you're looking at the word morphology itself, it contains two morphemes, the word morph, which means shape or form, and ology, which means study of. So morphology is the study of the shape of the word. This is just a screenshot of, simple prefixes and suffixes. Lisa will be attaching to this chat a list, quite a comprehensive list of prefixes and suffixes that are quite, helpful for learners to go through and sort of work through. Sometimes some words can come across as if they have a prefix in them, but it's actually part of the word. I can't think of anything right now, but say, for example, on the other hand, the example that I used before, bicycle, it's got bi, which means two, and cycle, which means a circle. These are some common examples of prefixes and suffixes. One thing about prefixes, they changed disappear. Thank you. In disappear changes the meaning of the word. So prefixes change the meaning of the word, whereas suffixes changes the grammatical class. So say appear, the verb appear, it finishes, thanks Lisa, probably 1 minute left. It finishes with, we can add ed to it, so it becomes appeared. We're changing the class, the verb, the tense. We can add dis, and it becomes disappear. It completely changes the meaning. Again, especially suffixes, they change the sound of the word, not just the meaning. Not just the class or the part of the sentence that they are, that they play. For example, able, inflatable. We sort of, it might stretch the word, but certain suffixes change. Say decorate becomes decoration. So it sort of like adds sounds. And this is where we need to bring it to the students' attention that it doesn't have an SH, it's actually TION conveying that shin sound. Last two words to go through before I answer any questions, if you've got any, and if I can answer them without Google. I've put in some examples. A root word joy comes from the Old French pleasure, delight, bliss. We add to it the prefix in, which means cause or make. It becomes enjoy. So a noun becomes a verb, but also it sort of adds to the meaning. Joyous, we add to it the suffix. Joy is the root word, again, Old French. Couvrir is the actual root word or original word. Oh, sorry, no, that's wrong. I had a cover, uncover, discover. I changed, this example is wrong. So joy, again, it's pleasure, means pleasure or delight. We add the suffix ous, becomes joyous, possessing the qualities of joy. Joyless, the root word less. In this case, the suffix changed the meaning of the word, not just you know, what part of the sentence it is. It becomes joyless, becomes an adjective, whereas joy is a noun and it means free from joy. Prefixes and suffixes alter a word's meaning and its grammatical function. Finally, morphological awareness, which is, you know, recognizing morphemes, prefixes, suffixes, root words, is a very important tool to aid learners' literacy development. Understanding how words can be spelled, it helps, you know, making the task of spelling easier, increases learners' vocab because you're sort of, there's a finite number of prefixes and suffixes that we have in English. And comprehension of new words. And most importantly, all of these activities can be done with any level, you know, student from any level, whether it's a beginner or, you know, an advanced student. Of course, the examples will always need to be from something that they're familiar with. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this. Please give me your feedback. And thank you so much for everything you do for our students and for being such an important part of our program. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you again at a different workshop.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Georgie. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for coming along, and happy National Volunteer Week. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. See you, everyone.